The handle 3FM927 and on Twitter as well, same handle as well as on YouTube. Let's get into the details. And management of the University of Ghana, they've justified the new residential policy as a strategy to help deal with clashes between halls at the university, which they say has bedeviled them for years. Furthermore, the university has assured that it will continue to implement every rule to the latter for a conducive environment for teaching and learning. Frederick Kuzon-Tosani is a reporter with campus-based station Radio University. He's joining us on phone with some more. So exactly what the university have been saying. Frederick, many thanks for joining us. So what justifications beyond these words have the university been offering, also in the face of a court action secured by the Commonwealth student?
So yes, Mawuena, good afternoon and thank you for having me. Earlier this morning, the University of Ghana held a press briefing on all the happenings here at the University of Ghana. And this comes right after the Parliament Select Committee on Education yesterday released a communique asking the University of Ghana management to reduce the academic user fee for the 2022-2023 academic year. So management of the university held a press conference this morning to inform the general public about all the happenings here at the University of Ghana. And if I could take you through some of the things that were said at the press briefing this morning, management of the University of Ghana says they have been finally been vindicated with the SRC and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, both issuing statements that have categorically stated that the University of Ghana is not charging illegal fees as stated by some concerned students here at the University of Ghana. And for that matter, they cares about the welfare of their students, and therefore they are appealing to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education to consider offering a discount on fees for the academic year to lessen the burden of the students. And this, they say, will be taken up by the University Council at a joint meeting later on during the week. So that is what the University of Ghana said this morning about accommodation crisis and the class that happened 3 days ago. Management of the University of Ghana are saying that they will continue to beef up security to ensure that the 99.9% of students who are here to study and not to indulge in any violence will have their peace of mind to engage in the academic activity. He is also the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Academic and Student Affairs, who is the person of Professor Gordon Wandare, made mention that about one-third of the students who partook in 3 days demonstration to forcibly enter the Commonwealth Hall were still not the students of the university. So the question he is asking is, if they are not students of the university, how come they came out to say they are students of the university when, per the record they had with the police, they are not students from the university? So that is the question he is asking. And he is also urging parents to take keen interest in advising their children on what they should be doing and to remind them of the reason why they are here on campus and not to be indulging in academics and not to be influenced by friends to indulge in things that will make the environment of the university not safe for all.
Frederick, was there any mention of the court injunction that was secured by the student of the Commonwealth Hall when he spoke to the accommodation issues and the challenges thereof?
So yesterday, the University of Ghana again released a communique, and per that communique, they said they have filed an order for a stay of execution against that order to stop them from implementing their residential policy after a board meeting on 26 October 2022. So they have been advised by their lawyers and they filed a petition. And what they are also asking is, they ask the students that is an injunction issued through violence and lawlessness, because what the students did last 3 days is something that the University of Ghana has never seen, because the university has always been up to the game. They were able to curtail the activities of these students, and 18 of them have been arrested, are in police custody. We understand yesterday they were arraigned before an Accra High Court, and 17 of them have been remanded in custody. So we are still waiting for updates from the Ghana Police Service as to how these 18 students who were arrested 3 days ago, what will finally be the fate of them. But we are understanding that about 5 of them are not students of the University of Ghana. They are rather old students of the Commonwealth Hall who came influenced this these other 12 students of the University of Ghana, all former residents of the Commonwealth, to endorse in this violent clash last Tuesday or just 3 days ago.
Right then, Frederick, I appreciate that you provide those details for us. That's Frederick Kuzon Tosani, a reporter with campus-based Radio Universe. And so the University of Ghana say that they've been advised by their lawyers. They filed a stay of execution on the injunction application, which was secured by old student of the University of Ghana, preventing the university from carrying out the new residential hall policy, which has become a subject of great controversy. We'll be staying on matters relating to education this afternoon for you, because candidates who sit for this year's West African Secondary School Certificate Examination, WASSCE, will answer different questions in the same exam room. That's according to the Education Minister, Dr. Yawose Duchum. The minister says this is part of efforts to eradicate the canker of leaked exam questions in the country. WAEC has come under scrutiny in recent times, particularly from the education think tank Africa Education Watch for exam leakages, following a report by the think tank that 55% of the exam papers leaked between 10 and 1 hour before the start of the exams. But the minister says this will be a thing of the past.
We have put an end to the perennial examination leakages that confronted BECE exams in this country. When the president charged me to find a way to end it, I went to work. We brought about best practices from around the world called serialization. 2 years ago, on the BECE, different regions had different questions, even though it's the same level of difficulty. People who used to sell the questions online saw that their market was gone. They pulled down their website. Because some people who bought it were in Accra, but they bought the questions for Ashanti region. Therefore, it didn't show up. Just this past year, every examination center had different set of questions. In the coming examination, within the same examination room, students are going to have different questions. It will be a game changer. When that happens, we have stopped leakages. We have stopped examination more practices within the room.
That's the Education Minister, Dr. Yawose Duchum, and he's also been speaking to investment in basic education in an exclusive interview with colleague Roland Walker.
110 kg classrooms have been refurbished to bring 21st century learning to Ghana in terms of the basic level. I know the presidents have done so well with secondary education, and STEM schools have been done, but he also wants to make sure that the STEM is actually a pipeline from kindergarten all the way through junior high school to high school and then beyond. And that is why we turn our attention to basic schools and began the KG rehabilitation and construction across the country, so that the story will be a holistic one and not just one of free senior high school implementation. It's going to be a story of education transformation like we've never seen before.
That's Education Minister Dr. Yawose Duchum, and we'll get reactions for you this afternoon on the policy to have 4 separate exam questions in the same exam room for you. As and when we're able to get those reactions, we'll bring them to you. But we'll move away from this to a subject matter that continues to dominate the conversation, and that's in relation to government's domestic debt exchange program, because it has officially ended, bringing to conclusion the controversy over whether bondholders, the domestic ones, would sign on to the program, which has been described by government as critical in securing an IMF program to aid the ailing Ghanaian economy. The conclusion of the program, however, appears not to be the end of the government's troubles, with the minority now insisting the domestic debt exchange program be brought before Parliament for approval. Boko Central MP Mahama Yarga, he told Alfredo Kansi on Ghana Tonight he will file a motion in Parliament today compelling the minister to bring the exchange before the House for approval.
I will file a motion in Parliament asking the Finance Minister to bring every request relating to the domestic debt exchange program for consideration by Parliament. It is not right that on his own he chooses to embark on this whole exercise, which has never really taken place in our constitutional history. It's never taken place in Parliament. It's never taken place in this, our economy, that a finance minister has led us to default on our domestic bonds, and then it has to be restructured. So my case is that everything that he's doing should be the subject of parliamentary consideration and approval, because it is expressly provided for in the Constitution and in the Public Financial Management Act. They think that they are being smart or clever by couching it as a voluntary exercise in which the owners of the existing bonds are bringing back their bonds in exchange for new bonds. Mm-hmm. But you see, every first year law student who has done law of contract will know that once there is an agreement in which I have given you money and you are paying me a coupon rate of 10%. If I come back and say I am trading that existing bond for a new bond that has a certain coupon rate, it means that automatically I am abolishing the existing contract.
That's Boku Central MP Mahama Ayariga. Let's take it to Parliament, where Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Komla Klucha has joined us on the line with some more. Many thanks, Komla. So, do we know if, first off, the motion has been filed by the MP seeking to have all of the agreements brought before Parliament for approval?
No, as of, not yet. As of now, we do not get that impression. But sources within the minority say that it's in the process of being prepared, and later, maybe today or possibly early next week, it would be handed over or tabled before Mr. Speaker, and then they will schedule it for the House to debate on it. So as we speak now, there's absolutely nothing before the House as of yet.
But has the business statement been read, and what are the expectations for next week?
Okay, so the chairman of the business committee, the majority leader, has just taken a podium to read the business statement. But what we are getting is that the president will give the State of the Nation address on the 20. We're getting indication that it's going to be on the 28th of February. That is next 2 weeks. Tuesday, he would come to Parliament to give a State of the Nation address.
And that's 2 weeks from now?
Yes. 2 weeks from now, that's the 28th of February, the President will come and address Parliament on the State of the Nation address.
Right, and that's Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Komla Klucha speaking to us. So he mentions that not been filed yet, that motion, and that the minority is seeking to put heads together and then do that, after which there will be an agreed way as to how all of this goes. But one person who's been backing the argument put forth by Boku Central MP is former Attorney General Ayikwe Otu, who also argues the program needs the blessing of the legislature.
I would agree to that. What I am worried about is the view that he had unilaterally changed the terms of the vote. He has not done that one. I think he hasn't done that one. As to the fact that maybe, or the position that he went to court went to Parliament to lay these things before Parliament and got an approval, and therefore if he wants to do something else, he should go back to Parliament. I think I really agree with that. For international commercial transactions, it is important that you come to Parliament for approval, but
Right.
that it could be used mutatis mutandis. In other words, that you can apply it for other, issues. For example, so that if it's taking a loan from external loan, which is very clearly stated, it doesn't mean that if you also taking a domestic loan, you don't have to go to Parliament. But the whole idea of getting parliamentary approval is for us to know how much that we are borrowing. Because if all the borrowing goes to Parliament for approval, then at any one point in time, the answer and all the things there that they use could just be taken, and then we can call it and find out how much loan we are taking.
That's former Attorney General Ayiku. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook and on Twitter as well as on YouTube. Let's do some other stories where a report by the Ghana Statistical Service has identified a wide wage inequality as one of the key demotivating factors hampering Ghana's development. The Ghana Earnings Inequality in the Public Sector report said the phenomenon hampered output in the public sector, impacting development negatively. There's more in this news desk report. We get reactions afterwards.
The survey was based on pay data from the Controller and Accountant General's Department. This shows a gaping gap in the earnings of top executives in the public service and how reward schemes like allowances deepen the inequality. There are some 688,000 workers on government payroll. The top 10% of this number earns 82% of the salary allocation every year of the bottom 40%. The head of the Statistical Service, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, says this is an example of the crippling inequality in the system.
Take every 5 government employees, 4 out of that 5 are earning less than 3,000 Ghana cedis. On the other side, if you look at the disparities, if you take net salaries, that is what people take home, you have a minimum of 418 Ghana cedis relative to a maximum of about 33,000 Ghana cedis.
That's the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, ending that report. The Seth Abloso is the Executive Director for Labour Policy International. He's also Acting General Secretary for Professionals and Allied Workers Union. He's joined us on phone for a reaction. Many thanks, Mr. Abloso, for speaking to us. So the conversation of wage inequality or pay disparities has been known, but are you surprised as to the numbers as have been revealed in this particular report?
Thank you, Mawuena. It's not surprising at all. In fact, this revelation, if I should call it that way, has been made as far back as June 2020. June 2020, in the report of the Presidential Committee on Emolument for Article 71 of office holders. In the executive summary, the committee urged the government to spare no effort at reducing the wide gap between the highest and the lowest paid public servants in the country.
And since then, has enough been done? Because this report is seeking to point to the wage bill so headed in the wrong direction.
Nothing. And the report adds that the goal must be that the salary earned by every worker should enable him or her to live in dignity, Mawuena. Please underline dignity. That is the essence of the attention to which the Professor Mwabelu Committee was drawing. To public sector salaries, nothing whatsoever had been done. In fact, the report further urged that whatever percentage workers are giving, Article 71 office holders should not take more than that percentage in salary increase, I mean.
Right.
So where workers were getting 3%, 4%, and 7%, Article 71 office holders, by reason of the high salaries they were taking, were not to take more than the percentage the workers have been giving.
One of the many things which was introduced, which I was a lot younger then but knew very much about, was the single spine salary structure to deal with pay disparities and the likes. Would you make the argument that it has failed nearly 10 years on?
No, it has not failed. It is those are the top echelons who have by the differentials they created without reference to the relativities that exist in the salary structure, they've thrown the thing out of gear. So it has not failed. Except that we have an outstanding project to undertake among the many projects that have been left scattered all over the country. This one is to deal with this situation as pointed out by Professor Mawuena Egbeta committee, and to which attention has been drawn by the Statistical Service report. To deal with this question of low salaries in the public sector, so that the objective is that the workers should live in dignity. Now, when people are closing from work, and when they take trotro, they don't take it to their final destination. They alight along the way with friends and walk the rest of the way home.
Right.
By the time they get home, they are dead tired. So action needs to be brought on this recommendation by Professor Mawuena Egbeta, which has been buttressed by the Statistical Service Board. So you wonder why the inaction of those in government and those in labor leadership. Because the consultant who worked with this committee is no less a person than the director of the Ghana TUC's Policy and Research Institute, Dr. Kobna Nyapodi. So haven't the TUC leadership seen this report? Hasn't CLOSAC seen this report? Hasn't NAGLAT seen this report? Why are they silent?
Right then. Mr. Abloso, I'm sure this is a conversation that we'll come back to and have a lot more on, but many thanks for speaking to us. That's Seth Abloso. He's Executive Director for Labour Policy International. He's also the Acting General Secretary for the Professionals and Allied Workers Union. We move away from this, and concerns are being raised as to one of the many controversial subjects here in the country, and Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram Sam Nate George. He's accusing the Attorney General of deliberately stalling the anti-LGBT plus bill, otherwise known as the Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Value Bill legislation, which seeks to criminalize same-sex or relationship activities and its promotion. It is currently being considered by the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. That process, however, has stalled partly because of a memo from the Attorney General, Godfred Damier, expressing reservations about aspects of the bill which in his view are unconstitutional. According to the Ningo Prampram MP, the AG, after submitting the memo, has failed to appear before the committee to justify his opinion despite invitation from the committee. He's been speaking to Johnny Hughes on 3FM Sunrise.
We are still at the committee level. In fact, yesterday there was supposed to be a meeting with the Attorney General, and me, respectfully, I'll say the Attorney General is filibustering the bill. The Attorney General is acting as a clog in the wheel of Parliament, and he must take notice that we are taking very keen notice of it, and we would flex our muscle as parliamentarians very soon with him, because he has been in this country when we called for memos. He didn't bring a memo. His staff have been with the committee from day one. After we finished all the work on the 176 memos we had, and the committee has done the clause-by-clause consideration, now the Attorney General says he has a memo to bring. He's brought his memo. Come and let us sit down. Today he's busy, tomorrow he's this. Yesterday there was supposed to be a meeting. The committee gave a time. He said it wasn't convenient for him. The time he says was convenient for him clashed with the arrival of the German delegation. We are looking to see if Tuesday he will be available. He should come and let us we'll address his memo, because his memo is something that we will dispatch in 30 minutes, because the substance of his memo has been dealt with already by the clause-by-clause consideration, so that we can go to the floor. If the Attorney General has any reservations, he should stop filibustering the process. He should allow the committee proceed. He should come on the floor. As Attorney General, he will be given audience on the floor and come and debate us on the floor, and stop wasting our time in the committee. When he goes to Geneva to go and make promises to the West that the bill will not do things, he's not a member of parliament. He has no power to pass law. If he wants to fight our bill, he should bring his own bill to parliament to come and counter our own, and we'll meet him on the floor.
That's Ningo Pram MP Sam George speaking to Johnny Hughes on 3FM's Sunrise. We'll end with some unfortunate developments in the northern part of the country because concerns of lack of fire tenders in the Upper West region has heightened after several unsuccessful attempts to get a fire tender in the region to attend to raging inferno at the Yulo Senior High School at Jarapa. The fire on Thursday gutted the school's dining hall, causing extensive damage in the process. Officials say distress calls to the Jarapa Fire Service proved fruitless as the only fire tender there was faulty. The one in the nearby Nadoli district could also not assist for the same reason. School officials believe the situation could have been salvaged if fire personnel were present, and fire in schools in the region have become rampant lately. It's a subject we'll bring you a lot more on if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. But our top stories this afternoon as I make way for my colleague Dela Michelle to provide the very latest from the world of business. Management of the University of Ghana, they've been justifying the new residential hall policy despite a court injunction, and the latest is that they filed a stay of execution of that particular court ruling, which was secured by the Commonwealth Hall students, and so the decision to have them reverse that particular injunction will be put on hold for now. And also the news coming through from Parliament, the President will in next 2 weeks present the State of the Nation address on the 28th of February, and so those are the latest from Parliament. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Like I mentioned, Dela Michelle will bring us the very latest from the world of business now.
And yes, let's begin with our major stories for this afternoon as Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has signaled plans to cut government expenditure in the mid-year budget, and more doubts raised about the effectiveness of government's oil for gold policy. And many investors lose money due to the current economic crisis, we find out what investment options are left for Ghanaians. We have the details of these stories and many others coming shortly. Stay with us. Thank you for your company once again. Let's get into the details now. Let's begin with Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who has signaled plans to cut government expenditure in the mid-year budget. The move, according to Finance Minister, is to complement the debt restructuring, which intends to reduce the country's debt burden. The government has come under heavy pressure to cut spending as bondholders incur losses on their investments in the domestic debt exchange program.
As the international and domestic bond markets are shut for the financing of government programs, we are relying on treasury bills and concessional loans as the primary sources of financing for the 2023 budget. We therefore, Mr. Speaker, call on this House to support the government's financing requests to ensure a smooth recovery from these economic challenges. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you that I'll come back to this August House with the necessary fiscal adjustments after the debt operation is completed for your consideration and approval.
And you heard the Finance Minister there, Ken Ofori-Atta. In more news this afternoon, economist Professor Lord Mensah has rubbished the Bank of Ghana's justification for continuously financing government's budget deficit. The central bank has been accused of flouting its own laws following allegations that it printed close to 49 billion cedis to finance government's expenditure. The regulator, in an attempt to justify its actions, said the decision was based on Ghana's economic crisis, for which reason it had to intervene. But speaking to 3 Business, Professor Lord Mensah said the regulator's actions are untenable.
There is a reason why the laws stipulate that the financing required by the government from the central bank shouldn't exceed, the 5%. Now we're looking at, if you relate what was printed to the expected revenue in 2022, we're looking at around 20%, of that expected revenue, which is way above the, way above, even more than 20%. We're talking about 30 to 40% here. And that is way above the 5%. From where I sit, that, is not good. It defeats the laws. And for the purpose of the financial laws, and then for the principles that at the end of the day we control inflation, we control unnecessary, liquidity that will, flow around. That is why we set the 5%, target. Effectively, if they have flouted it, then they should be subjected to the law. But then at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves whether indeed those monies that were printed.
Professor Lord Mensah is an economist. Former CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies, Senyor Husi, has raised doubt about the effectiveness of government's oil for gold policy. According to him, the current arrangement where BDCs have to assess oil from bust will only create unnecessary bureaucracy and thereby undermine the objectives of the policy. He tells 3 Business the policy in its current state lacks transparency.
I do not think that the structure as put there is optimal, and I think that there are real problems about the transparency around it. What I have seen government now do is practically create a monopoly on both sides. You create a monopoly on the procurement side of gold and create a monopoly on the supply of petroleum products. That is at variance with all the deregulation policies and frameworks that we have, and put a government entity, and the only thing you can only smell around these things is that somebody is trying to arrange rent. Every single time that boss has traded in the history of Ghana, we post losses. Iwadaku said that we're making profits. When he left, we had over $200 million in losses. We are going to have the same thing, and that too was also almost another thing where they were really trying to centralize procurement, cut out access to the supply chain infrastructure only for bust. It doesn't work. You want to build a liberal system. You want to encourage investment. Do it right. If government can increase its access to gold or create a mechanism for us to have a lot more gold FX flows, it's a great idea. There's no problem with that. We always sell gold to collect dollars, often down by the mining firms. If you want to create a different structure for that, do that. Bring FX into the kitty of the central bank. The central bank will supply the BDCs on their imports anytime. You don't need to now say the BDC should come and access the products only through a bust. Meaning you are creating how many layers in there? So who is chopping inside?
Senyor Husi is the former CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies. Let's move on to our Friday feature, our headline story for today. Investment culture is already low in Ghana, but progress have been made in the last decade. However, there are fears the gains made could be reversed as bondholders incur losses on their investments in the government's domestic debt restructuring. But amidst all the uncertainties, what other options are available for investors? My colleague Menuaful has been seeking answers in this week's edition.
Until now, government has been the most credible borrower. This convinced investors shying away from risks to invest in government bonds and other instruments. But the troubles they're running away from has caught up with them as government restructures the country's debt to secure a bailout from the IMF.
My small coins that I invested with EDC investment, it will be affected by the haircuts. So currently, I will not invest money in Ghana.
With everything that's going on, now we are even scared to save with banks. The government says the debt restructuring is needed to avert a full-blown economic crisis, but the bondholders have disagreed. While the government is keen on implementing the debt restructuring, market watchers are worried about its impact on investor confidence.
People out there who have investment with the banks do not see the situation as if it's affecting just individual bondholders. They think it's affecting the whole banking sector. So if someone has an investment with the bank or is intending to have an investment with the bank, such a person may not want to give the funds to the bank.
Savings culture is already low in Ghana, with the country's gross domestic savings well below the global average. Well, experts fear the financial inclusion gains made over the years could be eroded if the domestic debt restructuring is not properly executed. As it stands, the investor nightmare is whether there are still low-risk products on the market to invest in.
For me, I will not invest my money because I don't know what will happen to the money.
Until there is change at the leadership, I think Ghana is not worth investing.
For me, I won't advise my children to invest. My money, I will just keep it in the house.
But some experts believe all is not lost for investors affected by the debt exchange.
The good thing that can end up coming up from this bad situation is that people will start looking at investments differently, and people will go back to the core fundamental principles of spreading your portfolio and creating a diverse portfolio of various instruments.
The most critical investment is investing in yourself. So somebody will probably want to also venture into their business. You can look at something like a fixed deposit with some banks. And I think you can consider is maybe for the long term, it's real estate investment. Usually minimum of about 2 years to sort of get some positive returns on the investment. And I think you may probably consider is what you call collective investment scheme.
Well, the experts have spoken. While restoring investor confidence and economic recovery largely depends on government, it also behoves on individuals to make the right saving and investment decisions for themselves. Menu Afol, 3 Business, Accra.
Share your thoughts with us on this particular development, where your investment is going to be. But before we wrap up, higher demand for the dollar is weakening the value of the cedi on the interbank market. Bids are higher today, around 12 cedis 95 pesos, while offers have crossed the 13 cedi mark, hovering around 13 cedis 8 pesos. If supply of the dollar doesn't improve, the cedi will continue to lose value against all major trading currencies. That's all the business news we have for you this afternoon. My name is Della Michelle. Log on to 3